In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills and winding rivers, lived a man named Elijah. He was a carpenter by trade, much like the one he followed, and though his hands were rough from years of shaping wood, his heart was soft, molded slowly by grace, trial, and time. He wasn't always that way. Elijah used to be quick to judge, quick to anger, and slow to forgive. But life, as it often does, had carved valleys in his soul, places where light finally began to seep in. Elijah's journey began when he lost everything. His wife, Miriam, died in childbirth, leaving him with a newborn daughter and a hollow silence that clung to the walls of his home. For years he carried the weight of grief like a yoke, speaking little, praying less. He worked to forget, to numb, to push through. But love, the kind Christ speaks of, requires vulnerability, and Elijah had none left to give. Then came Grace. She was a young woman, scarred by the world, full of fire and fight. Grace arrived in town with nothing but a suitcase and a child clinging to her leg. The whispers followed quickly. Unwed mother, drifter, damaged. Elijah saw them in the marketplace, heard the murmurs. But something in Grace's eyes reminded him of Miriam, the same fierce strength wrapped in tenderness. Against his instincts, Elijah offered her a job in his workshop. At first, she declined. But desperation has a way of softening pride, and soon she stood beside him, sanding wood and shaping it with steady hands. Working together in silence, they began to build more than furniture. Elijah saw the bruises Grace tried to hide, the tired way her child clung to her. He wanted to help, but love isn't always loud. Sometimes it simply shows up. He fixed their roof without asking. He brought extra bread. He taught her child how to use a hammer, how to carve beauty from broken things. Grace noticed, and slowly, she began to trust. One evening, as the sun draped the town in gold, Grace asked Elijah why he helped her.
"You don't even know me," she said.
Elijah paused, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I don't have to know your past to love you in the present," he replied. "Christ didn't wait for me to be clean before he gave me grace." Grace wept, not because of the words, but because of the truth behind them. In a world that demanded worth before love, Elijah's kindness was a rebellion, a reflection of something higher.
But not everyone saw it that way.
The town's pastor, Brother Matthias, believed in order, in rules, in reputation. He confronted Elijah one morning, voice sharp with judgment. "You're risking your name for a sinner," he said. Elijah looked him in the eye and spoke gently. "So did Christ." Matthias said nothing more, but the seeds of tension had been planted. Some townsfolk began to avoid Elijah's shop. Rumors grew. Orders slowed. But Elijah kept showing up. So did Grace. Then came the fire. Late one night, smoke filled the sky. A house at the edge of town, an old widow's home, was ablaze. People gathered but held back. The building groaned, threatened to collapse. Elijah didn't hesitate. He ran into the flames, pulled the widow from the wreckage, collapsed with her in his arms. He woke in a hospital bed, his hands wrapped in bandages, his face bruised. Grace was beside him. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "Neither did Christ." Elijah smiled. The town changed after that. The people saw love with new eyes, not as sentiment, but sacrifice. Not as comfort, but courage. Brother Matthias stepped down months later, replaced by a younger pastor who preached more about mercy than rules. Grace started her own small bakery, and her son grew tall, proud, strong. Elijah, older now, kept working. Not for profit, but for purpose. Years later, when his hair had turned silver and his hands had slowed, Elijah sat on a bench watching the sunrise. Grace joined him, her son, now a man, standing tall beside her. "You changed everything," she said. Elijah shook his head. "Love did." Grace smiled. "Christ's love." He nodded. "The only kind worth giving." And so the story of Elijah, the carpenter who loved like Christ, became part of the town's memory. A living parable of what it means to bear one another's burdens, to forgive without condition, to serve without seeking reward. A reminder that the greatest sermons are not spoken, but lived.